This episode of the MLB Guardcast is sponsored by Sadnap Studios. Are you in need of assistance when it comes to digital arts, logo creation, website design, brand building, or designing merch? Then look no further than Sadnap Studios. The team at Sadnap Studios wants to help and make your dreams into reality. Everything is original and organically created, nothing AI. You can follow them and check out some of their incredible work on Instagram at sadnap_studios_art drop. Thanks again to the folks at Sadnap Studios. Go Guards. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is time for another episode of the MLB Guardcast. I am Mike Vorhies. With me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, statistician, meteorologist extraordinaire, Bryan Shaw. Bryan, the weather's starting to change. Baseball is close. How we feeling, sir?
Yeah, we had that snowstorm, I think just last time we had recorded, and now all that snow is melted and we've got some warmer weather on the way. St. Patrick's Day is around the corner and regular season baseball is going to be played this month. So it's very exciting.
Cannot wait. Guards are in the middle of spring training, although another defeat today. I don't really care what our record is at the end of spring training. I want our guys to be ready, willing, and able to defend our American League Central crown and get into it. But you know what we need, Bryan Shaw? We need an expert who is currently in Arizona who may be able to shed some light on what's going on in spring training. What do you think?
Let's bring them in.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, one half of the greatest radio broadcast team of all time. It is Rosie, Jim Rosenhaus. Jim Rosenhaus, welcome, sir. We're so glad to have you.
I think in lieu of the offseason events, it's a 75-25 split at the best.
Right, you're 75.
But if you want to say
and...
no, if you want to say half, that's okay. But I'm going to go 75-25 based on the events coming up this summer.
I did get my bobblehead, the with all the quotes in there. It was really, really cool.
Absolutely. I love it. Jim, how's the weather in Arizona? I got to ask.
It's been tremendous all spring until today. And when I say it's not that nice today, it was still partly sunny, but only 61 degrees for a high.
Only,
I think our game time temperature was high. You know what? I zipped home for the weekend because I had some things going on at home. And so I got a good one last blast of winter. But it's been beautiful out here. So if any of your viewers, listeners are coming out, it's been tremendous. And it looks like it's going to be for the most of the month of March.
Yeah, I'll be there closer to the end of the month. I'll be
right.
it'll be my third trip, my third
Nice.
one. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll be knocking another ballpark off my list because I'm going to go to the Diamondback Stadium for that game.
Ooh,
okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a fun place. I'm guessing the roof will be closed. I think they have to keep it closed now, but it's a cool park. It's okay.
Oh,
I love the swimming pool. That's awesome.
Real quick, I guess before we get started into talking Guardians, I was just down in St. Pete. So speaking of baseball roofs, the Rays Stadium, the roof is completely gone.
What does it look like?
Well, it's just kind of like the scaffolding pieces, like the framing. I mean, there a lot of the area around there still needs a lot of help, so they need some contractors down there because there's clearly not enough people to get all the work done. But some businesses took a pretty big hit. They still need some help down that way.
Yeah. Wow. That's too bad because it's a good spot.
Yeah, it's a nice area. My in-laws snowbird down there, so we usually crash the party at least for a little while to get away from the Cleveland cold. And it was a similar situation as what you're talking about in Arizona. It was like 65 degrees but sunny. So to us it felt great, but they were complaining about how chilly it was because it had been in the 80s. So hopefully by the time I make it out to Arizona, it'll be a little bit warmer. But I know it's always nice, and it's nice to get away. So. Before we get talking about the team, some unfortunate news in the Guardians world. We heard last week that owner Larry Dolan had passed away. Um, and old age of 93 years old. I believe I had seen that his brother had passed away not long before that, just a couple of months ago as well. Um, and he was the founder of HBO, so a little bit of a tough time for the Dolan family. Jim, just wanted to ask. I had heard that Larry was very, very into the game when he was at the games. Do you have any stories to tell about Larry Dolan?
Unfortunately, by the time I got here, he was kind of winding down. Um, I don't know if he was ever day to day, but um, a greater involvement in the team than I think it's been the past 10 years since he turned over controlling ownership to Paul Dolan, his son. Um, but I do know, I remember when we first came out here. Um, Him and his wife Eva would have the booth right next to our radio booth, and that's where they would watch the games and enjoy the games. And he's still very much, even at that time, had a vested interest in the team, obviously, because if you own the team. But um, I think what made him, what has made Paul over the years um, great owners is that they put people in place to put together their teams, and they let them do their jobs.
Hmm.
I can't imagine, even back to when Larry first bought the team. I can't imagine there's even been one single time where they've said, "Hey, we like this guy, go get him," or make a trade. Or I don't think he's ever done that. Whether it was Mark Shapiro as the general manager or Chris Antonetti, um, they let them do their thing, and that has been a really successful endeavor since I don't know when they decided that's how they were going to do it, but it's really worked well.
So it seems like there was a secession plan. You had mentioned that Larry kind of had stepped away, and Paul was kind of the more has been more the face of ownership over the past several years. Uh, That's going to stay the same, I assume.
Yeah, Larry's passing won't have any impact on how things are running day to day.
May he rest in peace. Great owner. We're in great hands with Paul. And obviously this ownership in the front office, we've trusted them for how many years now? We're going to continue to do so.
Well, if you look back um, over the length of their ownership, which is the one, obviously when there's so many stories written um, about their ownership when since he passed, and um, longest ownership of any ownership group that the franchise has ever had, which is mind-boggling to me. But uh, um, the stretch of play they've had, especially since the 2013 season, third most wins in all of baseball for more than a decade, which is that's tremendous. So I know it's frustrating for so many fans that they haven't won the World Series since 1948, but you gotta you gotta be sniffing around it to have a chance at it. And um, I think based on their market size and some of the constraints they have, they very well could have been one of those teams that's between 90 and 100 losses a lot of seasons. It hasn't happened. It
Yeah.
hasn't happened, and that's a real credit to the front office.
Yeah, I believe I had done some. They haven't finished in last place in the division, I think, since before the strike, since before I think it was like 1992 or something like that, or 1991. It's way, way back.
Yeah,
It was
I know there are some
before.
tricky ones there. Um, you know, I think the 4 years before Tito, they were under 500. I think three of those four, and there were some 90 lost seasons in there. But I think the Royals were going through a tough time at that point. So you're to your point that probably holds up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's either they weren't in the bottom three of teams or something along those lines. But yeah, it's been definitely a stretch of competitiveness, and we were just in the ALCS this last season, so we're excited to ramp up and go into this off season, and then into spring training. but there's been a little bit of change, some new names on the team, some familiar faces no longer with the team. Maybe not necessarily the offseason you would expect coming out of the ALCS. So I guess I've seen some interviews with Chris Antonetti, and he had talked about wanting to fill areas where they felt like they didn't have as much depth. And clearly to him and to the front office, pitching staff was that spot. They felt like they needed to really secure the starting rotation. So they bring in Luis Ortiz, they bring in Cade Ciccone, they bring in um, help me out,
Don't
Mike.
forget
Who did they grab?
John
Who?
Means.
Yes, Means. Thank you. And he'll be back hopefully later on in the season. Plus Shane Bieber is back, and he'll be back a little bit later on in the season. So clearly, they felt like the pitching staff is where they needed to invest. But where are they going to make up the offense, Jim? That was left with Josh Naylor and Andreas Jimenez, who were second and third in the team in RBIs last season.
Well, it is a fair question, and I think a question mark heading into the season until a younger player proves otherwise. Um, Obviously, some names you hear about: Kyle Manzardo. We'll see some time at first base. Carlos Santana obviously will get a lot of playing time there. So I think they're hoping that that combo can come close to what Josh Naylor had done last season in a career year for him. Um, I, I I know for Andres Jimenez, they were concerned about the direction that his offense was going and the direction that his contract was heading, and it just wasn't matching up where they felt comfortable with that. Now they would love to have kept him, absolutely, from a defensive standpoint, but I think the thinking was this was if you wait a year and that contract starts to escalate, it's going to be really difficult to get something good back. And ultimately, what they got back was the pitcher from Pittsburgh, Luis Ortiz. I know Jimenez went to Toronto first and this, that, and the other thing, but it basically was Jimenez for Ortiz in a three-team deal is what it turned out to be. Um, so there's another area where they're trying to add starting pitching. But to your point, they'll need seasons of progress from Manzardo, from John Kenzie Noel. Will Brennan would be another. Bo Naylor. Bo Naylor would be another. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but they need those guys to take a step forward for sure.
Well, Rosie, my question is, so now obviously you remove Jimenez from second base. Who do you see as the, so to speak, heir to the throne? Who's going to slide into that spot, do you think?
And it's hard to know. And we're not even 2 weeks into games yet. Um, but there's a lot of candidates, and it doesn't seem like anyone's really grabbed it yet, which is fine. I mean, it's so early. But I think the challenge is finding at bats for everyone to try and make a decision based a little bit on spring training and obviously a lot on past track record in the regular season. Um, I think that the player who may have the inside track for opening day may be Gabriel Arias, if for no other reason he's out of options. It doesn't necessarily mean that he gets the bulk of the playing time there, but you would think he'd be on the roster because I don't know that they're ready to move on from him just yet. I think they still feel there's something really good in there, and they don't want to miss that. Um, but some of the others, Juan Brito obviously is someone that we've heard a lot about, not at the major league level, which I'm sure is a concern heading into the season. And then that group of Tyler Freeman, Daniel Schneeman, I know I'm missing
Angel
Angel
Martinez.
Martinez. Yeah, Angel Martinez. Um, and guys, look,
Well,
you don't
that's
want to
five
say
right
that.
there. That, like you said, that's a crowded group. That's
It's
five
crowded.
guys vying for the spot, and then eventually, you would expect maybe not this season, but Travis Bazzana, the number one overall pick last year, he plays second base as well.
Well, and that's what I was getting to was, um, you don't want to say these guys are placeholders, but that kid's coming.
Hmm.
he, he's if he's what they think he is, he's coming. And I don't know if it's this year. It may be. I would imagine he'll start at Double A. Um, they're just so high on him, and they're trying to check all the boxes and make sure that he goes through his development. But he is so driven to get here and help. It's going to be really interesting to see how they hold him back. It feels like um, when Lindor was on his way.
Hmm.
The- you know, how are they going to keep this kid down? And they try as they might. They finally had to bring him up in I think June of his rookie year. He came up, um, and this Bazana's not that close yet, but I think they feel he could move quickly. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's the future. It's just not now.
Well, it doesn't help that he hits a home run in spring training, and now everybody's just ready to give him the keys to second base.
I know
So,
that
and
spring training's great, isn't
I love
it?
it. Well, then, and Twitter X, I mean, it's everybody becomes the GM, and well, now you got
Yeah,
to put him at second, and there's so many moving parts.
right. I think Brito might still be. I should know the stats before going on your show, but I know he struggled a little bit. And but is a week's worth of games? I think he
I
has
was
had
gonna
like eight
say,
at bats.
I mean,
So
Yeah,
what do these guys have a total of maybe 10 at bats so far?
and maybe,
I
yeah,
Yeah.
I will say you've got Brian Rocchio's hitting 500.
yeah.
CJ Kafis is hitting like 433.
You
Like
can't stop him.
you can't look at those stats and automatically make the assumption. Like again, you're some of those guys are facing lower tier players and they're getting hits.
Yeah,
And some of our star, I think Hosey's batting 167. Are we're not, can't move on from him. Come on.
they might have to designate him for assignment.
I know
Um,
it's looking crazy.
no one will claim him. He'll pass
No.
through waivers.
Uh,
But
ano-
yeah, it's. I'm glad you guys have that perspective on spring training because I know um, it's fun when people get worked up about a record, a team's record. If you asked any veteran in that clubhouse what their record is, they would have no idea.
yeah.
I don't
No
remember
idea.
what I don't remember what our spring training record was when we went to the World Series in 2016.
You
I
know,
don't pay attention to the records. I don't. I want guys to get ready. And Brian and I were talking about this before you came on, Rosie, is that I just want our guys to be ready and be set, healthy, and ready to defend the crown. That's it.
and that's if there's a theme to camp so far in the run up to the first games and then the first 10 days or so worth of games, it's been a very quiet camp and quiet is good.
Yeah.
There's been no major injuries of significance. The guys coming back from Tommy John they're progressing nicely. Bieber, Trevor Steffen, some others. Um, so it's just been a quiet camp, which is nice. And that's what you're looking for. You don't want the drama. You don't want injuries. You don't want panic on what you're going to do to fill a spot. Do they have some decisions to make? Sure. Second base, right field. Um, but the rest of it looks pretty good.
Yeah. And speaking of right field, it has I saw a statistic that we have one of the longest um inconsistencies at right field. We haven't had the same opening day starter in right field since do you know who it would be, Jim, off the top of your
For
head?
back-to-back years,
Yes.
did Tyler Naquin?
It's Chew. It's been that long.
That's how long it's been.
That's a good
This will
one.
be the 14th season where we've had a different starting right fielder on opening day.
It's been a
I'm gonna
revolving
try and
door.
I'm gonna try and stump the PR department with that tomorrow. I'll give you credit,
Okay.
but I'll
Yeah,
I'll see if I can stump those guys.
it'll be 14 years. So Shin-Soo
Unbelievable.
Choo was the last one. Last year would have been Ramon Laureano. So with him not being with the team any longer, if it's Will Brennan or John Kenzie Noel, or is there another candidate for right field? Do you think that'll be the split that we'll have is Brennan and Noel, or do you think there'll be somebody else possibly at right field?
I think that's what it would be if you had to. say, hey, make a decision today on who you think it'll be, I think I'd go with that. Um, I suppose Jonathan Rodriguez has an outside chance if he has a ridiculous spring and one of the other two are really laboring. But um, yeah, I mean, that's what I would go with right now. Maybe one of the, the Tyler Freeman, Daniel Schneemann, Angel Martinez group that's, moving between the infield and outfield. Maybe one of those guys get some playing time out there too. But I think your primary contenders are John Kenzie Noel and Will Brennan.
We could
And what
also
about
remember Gabriel Arias played a little outfield as well, so that could be a spot for him too.
That is true. That is true.
he does have a cannon of an arm.
Oh
What
my.
about
Yes.
Chase DeLauter? We haven't seen Chase DeLauter yet so far this spring, and he's another prospect that a lot of people are excited about.
He's in Major League camp, but he has not played a game yet. Um, I'm not sure what's going on, to be honest with you. And nobody's really saying. There were some questions today, and um, they were going to, try and find out if they could announce something, if there's something to announce, or if he. I know they were going to take it slow with him, building him up toward game action. He played in the Arizona Fall League, but not nearly every day. I think it was only twice a week. So I think they're still trying to be really careful with him, but um, hopefully we'll get an update. If it goes too much longer where he's not playing, I would think they would make some sort of announcement on why.
Well, we know that he's a huge prospect. Everybody wants to see him and what he can do, but I agree. They've got to be taking it slow. I mean, if you look at today, Emmanuel Clase made his first appearance today. So
Yes,
there's a method to the madness. They're not just going to throw him out there and risk injury. They're going to let him ramp up a little bit. I would imagine he's going to play next week. I think we'll see him in a game or two.
I think that's the hope. And it's fun. It was fun last year when he played, and um, he took part in live batting practice before the game started, and did a number on a couple of pitchers. So the swing is there, and hopefully the rest of it is healthy.
Now, Jim, we've been talking about, so we talked about second base, kind of a bit of a crowd there for that tryout spot. Right field, also some of the same names could be potential in right field, so a bit of a crowd there. All of a sudden, the starting rotation is a little bit crowded too. Who do you have as your starting five coming out of the gate? Bybee, Gavin, Ortiz, and then Tristan Lively?
I think that's definitely one that could happen. Absolutely. Um, it'd be interesting to see who else can kind of nudge their way into the picture. A kid who's been really impressive, and I don't think starts the season here, but Doug Nikhazy, the lefty who had a good year at AAA a year ago, he's been really impressive. Um, and then there's that group of uh, Vince Velasquez is in camp.
Hmm.
Veteran guy has been around a while. Same for Kobe Allard. He's thrown the ball well so far. I just don't know at the start of the year if they would be. Logan Allen is throwing the ball well. So
Yeah.
there's more than their spots available. But that rotation you just mentioned could very well be it. And I think they'd be happy with that if indeed Tristan McKenzie is getting close to the one that we saw back in 2022.
Yeah, his first start looked great. His velocity was up, and then his second start wasn't quite as good as the first one. But does it seem like he's healthy? Does he feel good? Have you spoken to him?
Absolutely. Had a chance to visit with him for a while last week, and he's just in a good place. And as he said, this time a year ago, he was coming off an off season of rehabbing, and he was trying to compete at the high level that you need to, and he wasn't ready for it, and started really having command issues, and just couldn't command the baseball the way he needed to. Um, he's back. The arm is lively again, and whether he can get that good command back, that's going to be a big key. But he sure looked good in his first appearance. Obviously, followed that up with one where he struggled, but I think we're going to see more of the guy we saw the first time around here this spring, and maybe he does make a really good push for the rotation. They're a better rotation if he's in it as Tristan McKenzie, the one that we've seen in the past.
We're gonna need sticks. I made the prediction. I slotted him in the fifth spot. I think he makes a turn to the positive this year. I think he rediscovers himself a little bit. We need him. I told Bryan that throughout last season we missed him terribly.
I think you're right, and there'll be others who can step in, but he was really good in the postseason year of 2022, and if you can get close to that with him again, if not there, um, it would be a huge boost because it was pretty special, especially down the stretch that year.
Yeah. So Jim, real quick, I know we've only had 10 games, but is there somebody that was off everybody's radar but has shown up and has wowed some folks down there in Arizona?
Oh, I don't know that he was off anybody's radar, but Gavin Williams certainly was really impressive the first time around, and as much as we talked about Tristan McKenzie, he's another key to the starting rotation, a big one, and could be absolutely dominant, and looked that way again his first time out here. So that was really encouraging. Um, as far as someone who's kind of beaten down the door to try and make the club, I don't think that's happened yet. Nobody's really stood out in that regard from the position player standpoint. But again, starting pitching wise, there's been, to me, like Doug Nikhazy's been tremendous, and Gavin Williams has looked good. So, um, those would be three names or a couple of names just to throw out there.
I've watched Doug Nikhazy, watched him blow through Akron. He's fun to watch. Had a chance to talk to him. Chase DeLauder as well. Both those guys, phenomenal to talk to. I cannot wait to see what they do once they earn that opportunity in the bigs.
And it'll be a big boost for the ball club. I mean, you look at DeLauder's power. If he can somehow get on the field consistently, it could be really exciting because you feel like it's in there, and um, he could be a huge power bat for this club.
Well, during the offseason, even though they traded away Josh Naylor, they did bring back a familiar face. Carlos Santana is back with his third stint with the team. Have you had a chance to talk to him? Is he excited to be back? From the pictures that they're taking, him and Jose seem to be excited to be back together again.
Absolutely, and he's an all-time favorite. He said, I saw him last summer with the Twins, and he goes, I'm going to end up back there. I think he was hoping it was last season because he would have been part of the playoff run. But here he is, and unexpectedly so, I think, for him. Good by the indicators of him finally selling his house, and so it's been kind of neat, to see him back, and it's almost like he never left. He's got the same locker and same number. Um, And I think it'll be good for this club. I think if they had traded Naylor and not made a move like that, um, that would have been a real tough pill to swallow. But um, I think getting Santana back softens that blow a little bit and kind of gives them some breathing room to give some of their younger first basemen a real opportunity, but not rush them. He gives them that luxury.
Yeah, and going back to the offseason a little bit, I think fans largely, especially coming after the ALCS, we're looking for that move that kind of puts them over the top, that Edwin Encarnacion signing, that Ryan Miller type of trade. And it was more of kind of just like a reshuffling of the roster. Last year when we had spoke, there was that situation with Bally and Diamond Sports Group where they were declaring bankruptcy, and we weren't sure if we were going to stay with Diamond and Bally, and they weren't sure how much money they were going to make. Now this year they go to MLB is going to produce the games. And I know you're in radio and not on the TV side, but MLB is producing the games now. We haven't heard the cable partners yet, but they have this streaming package for people who have been cord cutters. But from if you think about that, we don't have a guaranteed TV deal where you knew with Bally and Diamond you were getting, say, 50 million a year from them. Do you think that impacted this offseason? Again, that uncertainty with the whole TV deal and what they were going to do with MLB?
I do. I think that was definitely an impact on what they could do, what they were willing to do with that uncertainty. That's not easy, and it's not just impacting Cleveland. It's Minnesota. Um, on Monday, uh, the Guardians are playing the Mariners, and they're in the same boat. MLB's taken over, and you don't have that guaranteed income coming in, so it is tricky for those teams, and it's going to be interesting to see what the end game is throughout baseball. Um, I wonder if they'll be able to get to a spot where it can be shared revenue like it is in the NFL, where everybody gets the same piece of the TV money.
Yeah, because you have the Dodgers situation where their TV contract is 350 million a year or something ridiculous like that. So they're able to pay for their entire roster, Shohei included, with just their TV money versus, the Guardians where we're talking about, well, if they were bringing in 50 million, that's not even half the roster. Now, do you think I don't know if you've spoken to anybody, I don't know if you're privy to any of this, but do you think the expectation is eventually they could do better in with the current structure of how they're doing things than they were with the Bally situation?
You're right with your first statement. I'm not privy to that. And honestly, I probably should be more in tune to it, but um, I don't know. I don't know if that's the goal at some point in time where they would do better. I don't know if that's possible the way it's set up right now. So it's just hard to say. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just, kind of talking out loud because from a standpoint of they're going to have to find out, how many subscriptions they get. And, that money is going to come in more gradually throughout the season versus knowing you have this deal for 10 years for this much money for all those years. Um, and like I mentioned, we don't even have cable partners yet. So I was just curious if that had been discussed or if that had been talked about. So, I understand if that's not something that's really known, and maybe they don't even know yet. Maybe it's just a wait and see of let's see how many people sign up for this thing.
I know this is going to come as a surprise, but if they do know, I'm probably not high on the totem pole of those they would share that with, which is okay.
I'll tell you what though, that $100 deal to watch all of the Guardians games,
Yes.
I think that's a steal.
Is that good?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
that's very fair.
Well, it's
Yeah,
so 162 games, so so that's like 40 cents a game, something like
Something
that.
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a steal. I'll take that.
It is amazing the constantly changing face of sports television and how you get it. Like how
Yeah,
your favorite team or just the package of games that you get to see. It's a moving target right now.
it is. But I'll tell you what, I've already purchased my $99 package. I'll be watching the Guards games, the ones that I don't make it down to Cleveland and cheer on the Guards that way. Bryan, I'm sure you're going to go to every single home game. You usually do.
I don't have that many tickets, but I still have my quarter season. Uh, Jim, last year we were talking about kind of some of the fun things at camp, and Austin Hedges' name came up as it does when it comes to fun things. And you told the story about how he's on the scale with his shirt off, heavyweight champion of the world. Uh, any shenanigans yet, or is it still a little early?
No, it's not early, and I wouldn't call this shenanigans. I'd call this what in the world. Um, so there was a rumor going around last week that Bo Naylor named every country in the world, of which there are 100 and did you know there are 196 countries in the world?
I
I've heard
I
that.
would have
Could I name
ballparked
them?
it
No,
at
no
something,
chance.
but yeah, I wouldn't
He
have.
it took him 13 minutes, but he named them all.
That's
And
incredible.
13
I guess
minutes.
blue people.
Wow.
Apparently, there's an app where there's a lot of those types of games like geography and Um, and I don't know if someone was mouthing off or whatever, but Hedgie told Bo, he goes, "I'll give you a week to study, and you can come back here in a week and give it a try." And he came in, and you have to type it in to the app, and he got like the spelling correct on each
Oh wow.
196, and guys were blown away. So I thought that was really impressive. I asked Bo about it, and he just said that, he studied for it and learned them all and nailed it in 13 minutes.
I wonder what the wager was.
That was the
I
next question.
wonder. I
I don't
wonder
know
if
that
there was something that changed hands.
the conversation degenerated into, um, remember the movie Rain Man?
Yes.
Somehow they were tying Bo into that movie, and it wasn't. It
That's
got
awesome.
it. Let's just say the conversation. It was out at his locker, and there was like a table where the guys eat. Some of the guys will eat breakfast, and Tanner Bivey's listening to Austin Hedges just killing Bo Naylor and could barely eat his breakfast. I felt bad for him too. So anyway, that
The
was my
real
fun.
game, the real game now, somebody needs to quiz Bo mid-season and see if he can still do it.
Yeah.
Maybe
I,
Hedgie can get some of his money back.
I just thought that's pretty darn good right there to be able to do
Awesome.
that.
Jim,
Yeah.
do you
I
think
love
that's
it.
just a talent of a catcher? Because, that kind of memory retention, because think about all the pitchers that he goes up with
Maybe.
and has to know everybody's pitching staff plus how they're going to attack all those hitters. Like I always wondered that. Like, I mean, the catcher is basically the quarterback
Yeah.
of it and how they're going to approach each guy and so many little things set up in there. Whereas like the outfielders, not to make fun of the outfielders, but they've got the little card in their pocket and they're like, okay, where do
Right.
I set up for this guy?
Well, I think in Bo's case too, I know heading into last season, and I think he's doing great with it. He learned Spanish enough where he could go out to the mound, and if there's a pitcher out there whose English is limited, he can go out and get things done and
That's
be
awesome.
able to communicate. So he's a smart kid, and always enjoy talking to him because he gives you a little bit more than you normally get. Um, and clearly he's smart. I mean, he's learned Spanish pretty quick, and he can name all 196 countries in the world. So I'm giving him credit for that.
Well, now he doesn't have to live in his big brother's shadow, and hopefully he has a breakout season, and everybody will leave him alone.
Yeah. Um, I asked him about that, and it was interesting because I think initially it wasn't easy to hear that news, and I think more so from the place he completely understood, what the Guardians were doing to try and make the team better. Um, he's happy for Josh because he's ended up with a good team. Uh, they have a house here. This is where he spent most of his off season. Uh, and I think he, what was really impressive to me, he just was grateful that he could spend his first, season and a half, 2 seasons in the major leagues playing alongside his brother. I mean, that is so uncommon in the major leagues. Now, it's not uncommon to have brothers who played in the major leagues, but with different teams. But to actually have brothers on the same team, it's so uncommon. And he treasured that time and is thankful for that time. And it's just now that the Guardians are trying to make their team better. The Diamondbacks are trying to make their team better, and figure it all out. And Josh ends up with Arizona, and he
We'll
gets it.
see him in the World Series. They'll rekindle it in the World Series.
Yes,
That would be great, right?
I like it, and I like it.
All right, well, Jim, we're gonna
Well,
get booted
yep.
here shortly, so just wanted to thank you
Who's
again.
booting us?
The
You
timer
two
on
are
Zoom.
Zoom.
All
Zoom's booting us.
right.
Yeah, we have only limited time on Zoom, so thank you again. It really really appreciate it. Appreciate the insight and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're really busy down there in Arizona, and hopefully I run into you here in a couple of weeks. My wife and I will be there closer to the end of the month.
Well, shoot me a text, and then I'll try and stop by and say hi.
Awesome.
That's awesome. I love the backdrop of you, Jim, right now. It's just
The sun has
so
set.
peaceful. Yes, but it's peaceful
Oh,
and it
yes.
just looks nice and calm. I love it. But thank you once again. Can't wait to talk to you again later on this season. Go Guards. Enjoy your time in Arizona. Be safe. We'll talk to you soon for sure.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure.
Take care.
Go Guards. Once again, obviously, Rosie. Woo! I love having Rosie on. It gets me ready. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play some ball. I'm excited. I love the insight. Bryan, where can they find you and us so that they can listen and watch this later on?
Yeah, really grateful for Jim and his time coming on with us. You can find me at WXSHAW on X on Twitter. I'm Bryan Shaw on Facebook. We are Guardcast MLB on Twitter, MLB Guardcast on Facebook. Mike, how about yourself?
They can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Mike Vorhies. You can find us on YouTube. If you didn't know, we're on YouTube, MLB Guardcast. You can see our beautiful smiling faces. You can watch Rosie as well. And you can watch us or actually listen to us on Spotify or anywhere that you listen to your podcast, Bryan. It is coming. Baseball is here. I cannot wait. The next time we record, these games are going to mean something. Cannot wait.
We'll be talking about the opening day roster and making predictions and all of that good stuff. So I think we have one more guest that we're expecting to come on a little bit later on. And
we're gonna have
and we'll be talking
Do
prospects.
you want to tease it? Do you want to tease it? You might as well just let the cat
I'll just
out
say
of the
we'll
bag.
be talking prospects. That's our.
We're gonna be talking prospects. We're gonna get a little local flavor. How about that? A little local flavor on. So stay tuned. Cannot wait to chat with this young man here very soon. Bryan, as always, it's always fun talking Guards. I cannot wait until next time. Be safe, folks. We'll see you soon.
Talk to you then.